2 games are down. 2 games to go today with the USA and Canada having their opening matches as hosts in the FIFA World Cup. Let's just begin talking about the USA game. You know, the wait is finally over. USMNT begins its home World Cup journey Friday today at SoFi Stadium. And while Paraguay, I don't think is the toughest opponent of this group, I think it is a game that's going to define where this team is going, and it's going to define the tone of this entire tournament for the USMNT. I think the biggest question for me is, can they handle the pressure? This is the first World Cup game on home soil for them. And there's massive expectations under Mauricio Pochettino. 70+ thousand fans are going to be in that stadium watching USA versus Paraguay. And I think I don't think a win is needed, but I think a win would put the USA in control to win this group when it comes to the end of this group stage, because they play Turkey, who I think is the toughest opponent for them at the end of this group stage. You know, I don't think talent is a question for this team. I think handling the moment is really a question. The reason why I bring this up is because in 2024 Copa America, you know, I thought that they had a pretty good squad going into it. They had a decent 2023 when it comes to, you know, international tournaments, or maybe it was 2020. Yeah, I think it was 2023. Yeah, they won the Nations League. And then 2024, they just did not respond. The Panama game, they played terrible. Uruguay game, I will say, I think it was a little bit of a robbery in terms of some of the calls that were happening. I don't know how you call, some of these calls that happen in that first half of that game, but you lost nonetheless, and so that's a tough outcome. But will the home crowd lift this team, or will it create extra pressure for them in this game? The U.S. attack has to deliver. I think that's obvious. You know, they have been delivering over these last couple of games. They've scored 2 goals, 0 goals against Portugal. Then they scored 3 goals against Senegal, and they scored a goal against Germany. And these are some very tough opponents that they've scored goals against. In the previous windows, they scored 2 goals against Paraguay. They scored 2 goals against Australia. They've scored, I believe, 2 goals against Japan's B team. And they played Uruguay, right? And they scored 5 goals past them. So they have set themselves up with these pre-World Cup friendlies to play World Cup opponents, and they have been scoring goals on end against these teams, especially when that first team is out there. So guys like Christian Pulisic, Folarin Balogun, I expect Malik Tillman to start, and he has been really quiet for this team ever since the Gold Cup last year. And Weston McKennie is another guy that I think with the system that Poch plays can get a little bit, you know, sent back a little bit. He kind of doesn't really have the role that I think you should have with a player like him who has the dynamism to, you know, really push the ball forward. I think it's an interesting discussion to have. Is Weston McKennie the best player for this certain lineup? But he certainly has come up big in moments, especially in the corner kick department and the heading department. USMNT, again, has consistently found goals over the last year. But I think with the pressure, can Pulisic, can Balogun be clinical in the moments where they have a lot of chance creation? Looking into this game, Daniel, do you think the U.S. has enough firepower to score against this Paraguay defense, which is pretty good? And do you think that the moment will be too big for them? Or will it be more like the Mexico game where they're going to be ready and hungry and they'll be able to score some goals and get a win?
I have a feeling with this game, I think they'll struggle a little bit at first with this defense, but I think they'll manage to open it up and get in there. I fully expect this U.S. team to beat Paraguay. I don't think this Paraguay team is all too strong, I guess. My biggest factor, I think, in this game, though, is like you brought up, the fans. I don't think this is something that these players have ever really experienced before, in a sense, because I feel like playing for this national team, you know, they're not going to experience a national team crowd like this. They haven't experienced, I should say, a crowd like this until today, and what should be 70,000 plus in a stadium cheering for the United States, which is great. I think that proves how much soccer has exploded in this country, and I hope they take advantage of that and win this game tonight.
Yeah, and looking at the Paraguay side, I think it is quite insane that Julio Enciso might actually play in this game after he suffered a thigh injury in the pre-World Cup friendly. I believe, I don't know who they were playing, but that was a tough loss for them. And I think Paraguay can only go as far as Julio Enciso goes. And so if Julio Enciso sits out this game, I think that USA will win. I think for sure. I think I would put it even in a higher chance than even I'm looking at. They have some other great players. They have Miguel Almiron, Omar Alderete, Gustavo Gomez. Is a big part of this team, and so they are a really physical and organized South American side that's dangerous on the counterattack, and they have some defensive players that can really stifle some of the American offensive possessions, but I think if they don't have Enciso in this game, the counterattack becomes much less dangerous. And so that's why I think with Enciso, I think this game is probably looking at like a 3-1 in the U.S.'s favor. I'm not saying defensively they would improve, but you could see a 3-2 if Enciso does play. I think he commands that much of talent when it comes to Paraguay's attack. Paraguay, again, they might not have the star power that the USA has in terms of individual players, but they have the quality to really punish mistakes, which we have seen a lot of defensive mistakes happen without Chris Richards. Now, with Chris Richards, I think that does improve, and we'll see if Chris Richards does start at the end of the day for this team. Again, the biggest threat, Julio Enciso, creative playmaker. He can create chances out of nothing. He is the most dangerous player in Paraguay's attack. And I think that if he does play, this will be a much tighter game than what we expect if he doesn't play. You have some keys to this matchup before we start, or actually I'll just start with the keys to the matchup. I think the three keys for this game, I think that for the USA, they got to win the midfield battle. Tyler Adams is going to, and Weston McKennie for that matter, is going to play against a very physical midfield when it comes to Paraguay. I think it's important for Tyler and Weston to set the tone early in this game. Containing Enciso if he plays, don't allow him space in between the lines. He is a winger, and so I think it's going to be very important for the wing backs like Dest and also the third center back like Alex Freeman to be there. And I don't know how or why he dropped off the face of the call, but we're going to keep going on with this preview nonetheless. Again, I think it's important that Freeman and Dest are able to put a man on him because he will be playing on that side. Or if it's on the opposite side, I don't remember if he plays left or right. Robinson and Ream or Richards are going to have to be very important when it comes to defending Miguel or Julio Enciso. And then the third key for this game, start fast. The home crowd is going to be electric, and similar to how Mexico scored within the first 15, 20 minutes of the game, they actually scored within the first 10 minutes. I think an early goal will swing momentum completely in the U.S.'s side, and I think they'll start pouring it on after that one. So, let's get some predictions. Daniel, I know you alluded to it earlier. What's your prediction for this game, and what do you think is going to happen in this one?
Yeah, my prediction for this game is I think it'll be a 2-1 USA win. I think Paraguay will get it going early. Like I said, I think the U.S. will struggle a bit. I don't think they'll be as fast as to get going. I think Paraguay might even get one goal in during that time. Yeah. But I expect this team to turn up the Jets either the late first half, early second half, and just keep that momentum going. Get 2 in, get an easy 2-1 win here today.
Yeah, I think this game has a lot of moving parts, which could change my prediction for this one. I am going to assume that Enciso and Chris Richards both start this game, and so that kind of cancels out the both issues that I have if they were not to start. And so I'm going to go with the original prediction that I had before this tournament started. I think the U.S. is really good in the attack right now. They are finishing their chances, and I think they will be able to have some good build-up play against this Paraguay team. Even though their defense is pretty good, I think the midfield is kind of where they can exploit some of the deficiencies of this Paraguay team. And also, I will say, Paraguayan goalkeeper, that is the biggest negative for this team. I think that Paraguay has the worst goalkeeper situation of any of the teams in this group, including the U.S., who doesn't have a good goalkeeper situation. Even though I trust Matt Freese, I don't really have the trust in Matt Freese to go up and beyond what he plays like. So I'm going to say USA 3, Paraguay 1. I know this Paraguay team doesn't necessarily leak goals all that often, but this is a USA team that is coming into this tournament as one of the best offenses, and I think they're going to feed off of this home crowd and win this game. But I will say, if Richards doesn't play, I see this as a much closer game. I probably will say a 1-1. But if Enciso doesn't play, I think it goes the opposite way. I think it's very difficult for this team to get goals, and I probably see like a 2-0 or a 3-0 from this game. But I'm going to say 3-1 USA in this one. I think the biggest X factor will be Balogun. Let's just move on quickly. Let's just do a quick preview of Canada. They will play in 3 hours from this recording. Finally gets its World Cup started, playing at home in Toronto. I think the expectations are sky high for Jesse Marsch's side, but standing in the way is a Bosnian team that you listed as one of your dark horses for this tournament. And this Bosnian team already proved during qualifying that it can punch above their weight, as they beat, I believe, Wales and Italy. Italy, I know for sure. I think they beat Wales in that first qualifying matchup. This is Canada's biggest opportunity. You know, it's its first World Cup match ever on home soil. It's entering this tournament on an unbeaten run, which I think goes to show Jesse Marsch's tactics are working. Granted, a lot of those are draws against some teams that I think they should have won against. But they haven't lost since October of last year. You know, some draws against some really good teams like Ecuador and Colombia show that they're really able to compete with quality opposition. My biggest issue for this team is the amount of injuries that have piled up for this team. You don't know if Tejan Buchanan is starting. You don't know if Alphonso Davies is starting. Moise Bombito is out for this tournament. And so this is arguably the most favorable opening match any co-host has in this tournament. But I think Canada has to take advantage. But they are a little susceptible with a lot of their injuries that are happening. And I think with Switzerland playing Qatar, and they're probably going to run up the score in that game, for me personally, I think it's important for one of these two teams to come out with a win. Similar to how South Korea had a win yesterday, I think one of these two teams have to come out with a win to kind of set expectations high, because both of these teams will play Switzerland in the next two. And they could lose both of those games. They could draw, but I think getting a win early is going to be important in this game. Canada, can they find enough goals? You know, Canada has been difficult to beat, but I think the bigger question is finishing their chances behind guys like Jonathan David and Promise David, Kyle Larin. I think this is going to be a low-scoring match, but when that opportunity arises, can those strikers be clinical, as Bosnia does sit deep and they are very organized defensively. I think, again, on the flip side, Canada's defense is trustworthy a little bit, but I don't think it's as strong as it was if Moise Bombito was in there. So I wanted to ask you this question. How effective do you see this Canada attack against this Bosnian defense?
I still think this Canada attack can be good, you know, as long as Jonathan David is still there, I think they'll always have a chance. So I'd look out for at least, you know, him. I don't know much about this Bosnian defense, but from what I've seen, you know, they're pretty decent. You know, I'm not gonna say they're a bad defense. They've definitely got a good defensive side, but I think just the way that this Canada team plays, granted, you know, they're not gonna have their best players, a couple of them. But I think as long as Jonathan David's there, I think there's always still an attacking chance just with him up front.
Yeah. And I think that, again, I think Canada's going to have chances. It's can they be clinical? They're going to be pressing high with this Jesse Marsch system. And so I think there will be opportunity to get turnovers in the attacking third of the field. But it is, again, can these guys put away the chances that they get? Because I have a little bit of a worry that they're going to come into this game, they're going to get a lot of chances, they're not going to put them away, and then Bosnia is just going to find a goal out of nowhere, which they have players that can do that. You know, Edin Džeko, final World Cup appearance for him, one of the greatest players in Bosnia history. He's still dangerous despite being in the twilight of his career. Armadin Demirovic, coming off of a 15-goal Bundesliga season, he could be Bosnia's most dangerous attacking player. You have Baraktarovic in the midfield. He's a dynamo. And so this is a Bosnian team. They don't necessarily have Canada's depth, but they have enough experience and quality to really punish mistakes in the middle part of the field and also the attacking third. I'm so excited to see a lot of the young rising stars of Bosnia in this game. I alluded to Esmir Baraktarovic in the previous couple of sentences. PSV Eindhoven winger, as you guys know, he's a really creative outlet on the flank, but sometimes can even play a little bit into the midfield. And then Karim Alibegovic, just 18 years old. He's one of the youngest players to watch in this tournament, and I think this is another guy that can really, make Canada pay off their mistakes if they were to have some. I wanted to ask you, which young core do you think works better in this? Is it going to be Canada's young stars? I guess they're middle-aged stars at this point. They've kind of aged out. But do you think Canada's stars will outplay Bosnia, or do you think Bosnia's young prospects are going to come out and make a statement in this one?
I personally believe Bosnia's young prospects are going to make a statement here. I think they faced a lot of adversity getting into this World Cup in the first place. So they've already got quite the bit of experience of when it comes to big games, I guess, like that, in games that mean something. And Canada I don't know what it is with this Canada team. I think it's just the injury bug that's hitting them right now that is really, making me not believe as much as I want to in this team. Because they are a really good team, but without these core players, I just don't think they can do as much as if they were to have them versus they don't. So give me the Bosnian youngsters.
Okay. And before we get to our predictions, the three keys to this match for Canada: feed Jonathan David early, get him isolated against these defenders, and let him create chances to which, if he's on the top of his game, to me, he's the best striker in CONCACAF when it comes to the big three in terms of Balogun, David, and Raul. But he has not been there all that often, and so I think Balo and Raul have kind of surpassed Jonathan David in terms of the pecking order of the strikers, but he can easily get back to the number one spot for me personally. 2, don't let Edin Džeko get service if you're Canada. You're already down a defender, a young, great center back. Limit the crosses into the box and force Bosnia to create elsewhere. Force Bosnia to create between the lines, create with their midfield, take long shots. And also, Canada's got to use the crowd. 45,000 plus in BMO Stadium. And I think early momentum could completely swing the match. As I said in the USA game, an early goal for Canada can swing the match in their favor, and they can kind of just ride that momentum out for the rest of the game. Again, let's just put our money where our mouth is. I think this is going to be a draw. I think if everybody was completely healthy, I would have said a 2-1 Canada win, but I don't know if Davies is starting. I don't know if Buchanan is starting. And so with the loss of those two guys who are probably their most creative players, I don't think that they're going to be able to win this game, but they will be able to get their first points in a World Cup at a home World Cup. So I have Canada and Bosnia coming to a draw in this one, 1-1.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it just a little bit, but I think when it comes down to it, I think one way or another, this Bosnia team is gonna find a way to get Džeko to be serviceable. I think it's gonna be a 1-0 win for Bosnia.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I could definitely see that happening. As I alluded, if Canada is not clinical with their chances, I think they could get really caught out with some of these young stars for the Bosnian national team. Well, we're going to have a lot of time between today and the next podcast. So is there any matches over the weekend that you're really looking forward to? I'll start, I'm going to say on Saturday, I'm really looking forward to Brazil versus Morocco. Morocco has a couple of injuries with Abde and Aguerd both probably being out of this tournament, and I think those are big losses for this team, and I think their chances of upsetting Brazil and winning this group kind of tanked with those injuries. I still think they have an opportunity to draw Brazil in this game, but that's going to be such a big key in that one. On Sunday, I'm really looking at Japan versus Netherlands. This is a game where I had Japan upsetting Netherlands, and I think the Netherlands are kind of in a situation where they're struggling to find goals. Unless Malin and Gakpo are, clinical and just playing out of their mind, I don't think that this team is scoring enough goals to really give me confidence to get 9 points in this one. Japan, on the other hand, really solid team, but they've hit a huge injury issue with their team. They're going to be out with Karu Matoma, and they just lost Wataru Endo for this World Cup, and I think that's going to be a tough ask for them, but I still think that they can turn out a positive performance behind guys like Ayase Ueda and Daichi Kamada and these defenders that I think have been playing pretty good over the last couple of months. And then on Monday, I am looking towards Belgium versus Egypt. I think somebody brought it, I don't know if it was me or you, brought up that Egypt could be a little bit of a dark horse candidate in this World Cup behind their attacking duo of Omar Marmoush and Mohamed Salah, both guys who are really dangerous attackers. But this Belgium side has kind of hit another gear in these pre-World Cup friendlies with a lot of big wins against some good opponents. And so I think those games are the ones that I'm really looking forward to. Do you have a game or two over the next couple of days that you're really looking forward to?
You kind of listed all the games I was going to be watching and paying attention to, but
okay.
I have another one of, I think, Ivory Coast, Ecuador. Well, I don't think it's going to be I think it is going to be an exciting game for a sense. I think Ivory Coast is actually really good, but I'm just excited to see how this Ecuador team plays. I've been hyping them up a lot, especially that defense. I want to put my money where my mouth is, and I want to see this Ecuador team do good. So that's one that I'm really excited for.
Yeah, it's interesting because you are really high on Ecuador. I am really high on Ivory Coast, and so I think for that aspect alone, I am really excited for this game because I think both teams are really good, but both of us have one over the other, and so I think finding out who does it, and then it just somehow becomes a draw. So I guess nothing will be decided there. But I think watching that game, I'll have a lot of fun. I think it could be a low-scoring game because both defenses are really good, but I am going to be excited to see if one of these offensive players, I trust the Ivory Coast attackers a little bit more, but I think one of these players breaking down a really good defense is going to be an interesting component of this game.
Yeah.
Let us know down in the comments below which game you're looking for. And if you see this before the games today, who do you have winning? USA versus Paraguay and Canada versus Bosnia and Herzegovina.